Hello everyone, welcome to React Advanced tutorial. In this tutorial, we will talk about React refs. First, let's see what are refs. In certain cases in our applications, we need a reference for an element or a component in our application to do something with that component. In order to find a reference or add a reference or create a reference, React is providing an API for it, so we can use this API to get the reference and then do whatever we want to do with that component. Based on the documentation, it's not something that we want to use a lot. It's highly suggested use other methods to do many types of application development, but for certain things that we will learn in this tutorial as well, it's best practice to use refs. For example, in this tutorial, we will talk about getting the focus to an element. And one of the ways that we can do is using React refs. And we get the reference of that element, we create a ref, and we add it to element, and then we can give focus when the view loads or any other actions happen. So let's start. Okay, here's the final product that we're going to see by the end of this tutorial. It's a very simple form that it has two fields, and when you reload the page, the focus will be on the second field. We can put it in the first field, but for this tutorial, we'll add it on the second field. I will show how we can add this focus. So as you can see, if I refresh the page, the focus is still on the second field. Let's go and build it. Okay, let's start with the very simple form. If you have watched Bootstrap application that we talked in previous tutorials in season 1, you know how to add these forms from React Bootstrap and add very simple elements to the UI. Currently we have two elements, two input fields. One of them is email. It has a label and it has an input field. And the other one has a label of password and an input field for password. That's a very simple form that we saw in the demo that we had two fields. This is what we need to do to add these two fields to the form. So now we want to add focus. And that's the place that we use ref. Usually for React, we don't use refs in many cases. But one of the cases that makes sense to use refs is adding focus or getting the control over focus. So how do we do that? In this tutorial, we'll learn how to use the hooks, React hooks for using refs. And for refs, we have a use ref hooks that I will just define it here. First, we need to define this hook. So we can say const and say input ref. Basically, we are going to add a reference to the field that we want to add focus. So then there is a use ref. And as you can see, as soon as I add it here, it auto imported for me up here. So there's a use ref that you need to import, and as a parameter we can pass null into it, and this is telling the React to create a reference for this input field, and then we have to pass it to the field that we need to get the focus. So how do we do that? This is the element that we want to add the ref, and we can just simply say this. It has a property called ref, and we can say ref equals input ref. So that's as simple as it is. And now, because we want to give the focus when the view is started, we can use one of the React hooks when the view loads. So if you have not watched the life cycle of React, you can go back and watch it. But basically, use effect is the one that we need here, and it has a callback function. And for sure, since it's a view that we want to load it only one time, we need to pass it pass an empty array here. And since we want to give this input field focus, we can just say input field into input ref, and it has a property called current, and then focus. That's as simple as it is. And if I run this application, you will see that it will load. But since we are using TypeScript, there's some type issue here. As you can see, it says it doesn't know that this input ref has a property called current, and that's why it's complaining. The first thing that we need to do is making sure that we give this useRef a type. So for input field, we have a HTML input field, input element. So that's the type that we can give to this. And for this one, since it's complaining that current could be null, and we can have it an optional, we can say, okay, so if input ref dot current is null, it will not go to the next field. So that's all from this part of the view. We just added the focus to the next field, which is this password. If we want to give it a focus to the first field, we can simply remove this and add it to this field. And if I run the application, you will see the difference. So let's run the application and come back. Okay, when you load the app, you will see the focus will go to the password field. And if I remove this ref from here, you will see that the focus will go away. And if I can put it back and maybe put it on the email field, it will go to the email field. And if I refresh the app, you will see that the email field got the focus. That's all we need to know about useRef. For maybe some other complicated stuff, we can use ref and pass ref to other components, but we'll not go through the details of it. You can read the documentation. Throughout my entire development, I have not used that part, but you might get into it and you might not familiar with it. I will highly recommend to read these refs and DOM. The most important part that we had to learn was the one that I told you, but you can also go and read the tutorial of the other parts if you need other things. But mostly you will use it for focus and get the element focus. That's why we go to the focus and use ref hooks